Wednesday, February 26, 2025, and a lot's going on in the world. So we'll be talking about that and seeing which of our regular panelists come in and all along those lines. But anxious prayers are continuing as the Pope had a restful night but remains in a critical condition. So that's something that is going on as folks are definitely praying for the Pope's health and all along those lines. Israel holds a mass funeral for Shira Bibis and her two sons killed in Gaza. So as Israel buries the Bibis family, Hamas officials are boosting of the humane moral treatment of hostages. So that's something that is being reported as well. And Syria Dialogue Conference, a historic opportunity, Shirey says, but talks on Syria's future fall short of promises, participants are saying. So Syrians back freedoms and constitutional process at landmark dialogue. So definitely that's something going on as we're having that country go in transition. And Taiwan condemns China for shooting drills off of the Taiwanese coast. So Taiwan dispatched Navy and Air Force after China launched the live fire drill with no warning. So China holds shooting drills off the Taiwan's coast as Beijing vows reunification push. So they're vowing that they're going to reunify between China and Taiwan. And Trump faces a Truth Social backlash over an AI video of Gaza with a topless Netanyahu. So Trump teases personal profit in an AI video touting the Gaza takeover plan. So definitely that's something that going on. And folks were definitely talking about the sunbathing Netanyahu in the post that he created. And the Gaza ceasefire is going on. Israel and Hamas have agreed to another hostage release and prisoner exchange. And the brother of one of the Hamas hostages describes the psychological torture of waiting for his release. So that's something else that folks are talking about as well. And a state of emergency declared after a blackout plunges much of Chile into darkness. So Chile declares curfew as power outage sweeps the country. Chile power outage leaves millions in that country without electricity, and Santiago Play suspended due to curfew. So definitely a lot going on in that area with the outages and all in that space. And it looks like Keir Starmer has a plan to woo Trump with a defense spending surprise. And that's something folks were talking about in Britain on yesterday. But Badenoch challenges Starmer over defense spending and Checo's deal ahead of his Trump meeting. So there's going to be a meeting between Starmer and Trump. The Tories are sliding into irrelevance at a terrifying speed, according to an article in The Telegraph. And the UK is to raise defense spending to 2.5% of the GDP by 2027, according to what Keir Starmer is saying. And Israel looks to extend phase one of Gaza truce as long-term deal proves elusive. So dispute over disarming Hamas bedevils efforts to extend the Gaza ceasefire. And as the clock ticks down on the Gaza ceasefire, Israel apparently is preparing for more war. So definitely it'll be interesting to see what goes on in that space. And it looks like you might need a bath after a bath. The world's religious gathering wraps up after having been going on for several days and everything. So definitely Makam ended on a note of devotion and apparently some controversy. So apparently that Indian festival hosts more pilgrims than the population of the United States. So at the world's largest gathering, there was a search for salvation and all along those lines. So definitely lots going on in the world. And I'll get back to some other world issues as well. But let me tell you some of the things that are going on in the United States as well. So definitely we know folks are paying attention to the House budget and a number of other issues that are going on also. So a lot's taking place and we'll be talking about that as well. U.S. strikes a deal with Ukraine that includes access to its rare earth minerals, officials are saying. Ukraine says it has agreed mineral deal with the U.S. So why Trump's very big Ukraine deal may not be an easy win. So definitely that's something that folks are talking about. And Fareed Zakari says Zelensky got what he wanted in the deal with the U.S. So apparently Ukraine says it has agreed to a minerals deal with the U.S. and all along those lines. But we'll see what goes on in this space and what folks have to say about that. And Trump budget bill extending first-term tax cuts survives the House vote, and definitely Trump to hold the first cabinet meeting with Musk in attendance. So Mike Johnson escapes stalemate with a stunning 13-minute reversal. So Trump shouts big first step for Mike Johnson as the House passed its budget bill, and all along those lines. And the administration says undocumented immigrants must register. So Trump administration to create an undocumented immigrant registry, and they're saying that the immigrants must register. So Trump administration creates a registry for immigrants who are in the U.S. illegally. And Kristi Noem announced the DHS registry for illegal aliens in U.S. that will require them to be fingerprinted. And definitely, it looks like there's still that case going on with Bryan Kohberger in the whole area around Idaho and everything like that. So, identify a suspect in Idaho killing. The FBI used restricted consumer DNA data. So, definitely the video battle over Bryan Kohberger's alibi as prosecutors try to limit the defense. So, that's something that folks are talking about as well. And new details emerge in the case that is ongoing and all along those lines. So we'll definitely see how this goes as well. And Christianity's decline in the U.S. appears to have halted, according to a major study released today. So Christianity's decline among U.S. adults, while religiously unaffiliated, grows, according to a study that was released, and all along those lines. Americans increasingly call religion important to their lives and are divided over its role in society. So it looks like after years of decline, though, the share of Christians in the U.S. has stabilized. And Trump gold card to offer rich foreigners the route to U.S. citizenship for $5 million. That's right, only a mere $5 million. So Trump introduces a green card for the rich, the gold card. Trump's gold visa, who qualifies, what it costs, and why it's divisive, will be something that people will be talking about as well. And it looks like cabinet officials were caught off guard and frustrated by Musk's directive to federal employees. So definitely, and I've heard some people, even Jimmy Kimmel was talking about how there are some folks that were sending some very pointed messages back in that request and everything like that. Well, actually, that might have been Stephen Colbert that was doing that. But Jimmy Kimmel said the whole country is a fire festival right now. So less than half of the federal workforce has responded to Doge, and that whole notion of what did you do productivity email. So a lot of folks are apparently ignoring it, and some of the folks that are running some of these agencies are encouraging their folks to ignore it as well. So judge tells the Trump administration it has less than 2 days to resume U.S. aid funding, and judge gives the Trump administration deadline to unfreeze foreign aid. So federal judge rules Trump administration could have to pay nearly $2 billion in some foreign aid, and all along those lines. So the judge has warned the Trump administration to comply with the court order on foreign aid payments. And the Supreme Court weighs straight women's reverse discrimination claim. So the Supreme Court is considering a reverse bias lawsuit amid DEI backlash. So the Supreme Court of the United States will be hearing a straight women's discrimination case that could reshape employment laws. So women takes reverse discrimination case to Supreme Court over the hiring of gay co-workers. So definitely there might be a reverse discrimination case in this regards as well. And the Trump White House is seeking tighter grips on messages with new limits on the press. The White House is now deciding who can cover the president, reversing decades of precedent. And the White House moves to pick the pool reporters who cover Trump. So definitely looks like the White House will be choosing media access sets dangerous precedent, according to Colby Hall, and all along those lines. So like I said, there's lots going on around the world and in various parts of the world. Voters might like tariffs, but not on Canada and Mexico, a new poll finds. So definitely they might liking the idea of tariffs, but not necessarily on our neighbors, and all along those lines. So a lot's going on in that space. And I see I've got Rick Rosner with me, so I'll have him join me and see what he's got on his mind as well, and everything. And we'll see if anybody else will join us also on this particular day and everything. But how are you doing?
I don't have much. It's still just 7 a.m. where I am. The price of eggs went up another 6 cents, national average to $8.12 a dozen. which is up 24% in the 36 days that Trump has been president. Of course, he can't be blamed for that. At the same time, neither could Biden be blamed but people still did. So we're still going to talk about it.
Yeah, and a lot of people are talking about that, and they're blaming them for eggs and chickens and all the other prices that are out there and everything. But the main thing is, it looks like some of these people are upset about diversity and things like that. I mentioned that there is apparently a case. I was hoping Nick was going to be here. That is going to be a reverse discrimination case, but coming from
I
West
just
Cable.
heard you describe it. What kind of asshole would sue because a gay person was hired? It's like, come on, everybody.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure that out as well. Let me see if I can get some more information on this lady, but it was reported in the Wall Street Journal and a number of other places where this lady is going to have this case go before the Supreme Court. So I guess she's
So I will talk about, I can talk about one area where it does make sense for people to complain, and that's college admissions.
Uh-huh.
But the deal is that you can complain, but you would be wrong because college, when I was a kid trying to apply to college, but I had a nervous breakdown and I didn't. But I was gonna apply to Harvard, and then I freaked out. But back then in 1980 or so, 20% of everybody who applied to Harvard got in. Okay. 1 person in 5. And it was harder to fill out the apps because the applications, because you didn't have, nothing was computerized. Everything was by hand. You had to write a bunch of essays. So people only applied to 2 or 3 or 4 colleges.
Right.
Now people apply to 15, 20 colleges, the gunner students, with the tiger parents. And so Harvard's admission rate is 3%. 1 person in 30 or so gets in. So nobody has any idea whether they're going to get in. Back when I was applying, you had a pretty good idea if you were going to get in or not. Now nobody knows. So you have to apply to a couple dozen colleges to make sure you get into. So, but the deal is, so that means that it's not fair to anybody because there are, I don't know, frickin' 10, 15,000 slots at these in the freshman class of these super elite colleges, Ivies and Stanford and Michigan. And there are like 70,000 kids applying for 15,000 slots. So it's not fair to anybody. Whatever system you set up, really qualified kids will not get in. So, so white people can complain, Asians can complain, Black people, it's.
Now that makes a lot of sense, Rick. I think I applied to 3 because I would have got into 1 because I would have been considered a legacy student, but they didn't have the program that I was interested in, which was journalism. They have a strong one now, but they didn't at that particular time in the late 70s and everything like that. Since I was in school from 80 till December of 84. I did get into Marquette in Milwaukee, and I was grades were decent but not great. I was probably like a C student or something like that. Consider myself fairly intelligent, but I wasn't necessarily exerting myself in terms of school and everything. So UNC, which has a strong journalism program then and now, did not want me because the grades weren't quite what they.
Well, but the exertions now, back then people were a little lazy. Like parents didn't push kids didn't push themselves. Now it's the opposite. It's crazy in the opposite direction. Yeah. My kid in high school took 3 semesters of calculus and a semester of differential equations, and she became an art historian. You don't need calculus for art history, but she had to do it to be competitive to get into the school she wanted to get into. So it's more than a little nuts. And one way to make things slightly less nuts is for these super rich colleges, these colleges that are sitting on billion-dollar endowments, to increase the size of their classes. Instead of letting in 1,600 people to Harvard and Yale, let in 2,000 or 2,200.
Hey, speaking of interesting ideas, I don't know if you heard it at the beginning and everything because you might not have been in at the time, but apparently, and I'll get back to this young lady and her discrimination case and everything, but apparently, Trump has created something called the gold card. And so apparently, immigrants
Yeah,
can come in, but it's for a whole lot of money. I think it was like 5 million or something like that. So,
5 million.
what are your thoughts around this notion of this super card that will allow you to come in to the country if you get this magic card?
Well, we've always had something like that. If you want to bring, even before this, if you had $2 million and you're from China and you want to invest in U.S. business, I think you could probably get in.
Yeah, and apparently
And,
that's what this.
and so 5 million is, I mean, Mark would love that because Mark thinks the U.S. should be charging to let people immigrate to the U.S.
You mean
Um,
Nick?
I mean, sorry. Yeah, you're Mark. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. It's like I said, it's 7 a.m. Nick
No, I
would
got
be.
you. Yeah, you met Nick. Nick would like that because he's talking about, I think, the gold card that he had to deal with in Spain and everything like that. By the way, the young lady that has got the case on front of the Supreme Court is Marlon Ames. Apparently, she brought a claim against the Ohio Department of Youth Services under the section of the Civil Rights Act that prohibits sex discrimination in the workplace. So apparently, she brought the claim against the Ohio Department of Youth Services under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, which prohibits sex discrimination in the workplace after a lesbian woman obtained a promotion she was also seeking. She was then demoted, and her old position was taken by a gay man. So I guess she's not.
All right, so I would bet that she is an asshole, and I would bet that her work performance was not great because this reminds me of, I don't know, in the past 30 years, there have been several lawsuits where white kids have sued colleges saying it's reverse discrimination. And in a general sense, they have a point because the system's not fair to anybody, as I just explained. But when it came to the specific students, you looked at their transcripts and they sucked. They weren't very good.
Yeah, and I don't know that she was all that great either because it says that she started working at the department since 2004. So that was sometime back and everything. And starting in 2017, she began reporting to a lesbian woman. She was denied the promotion she sought 2 years later and demoted soon after that. So lower courts, including the Cincinnati-based 6th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, ruled for the state agency, and then Ames turned to the Supreme Court, which is where it's at now. So
I'm a little bit of a Pollyanna about DEI. I feel like if you don't suck, if you're really good at your job, you don't have to worry about minority people taking your position. I think that's bullshit. You should, but if you're decent, yeah, you'll be fine. Nobody is really like pulling the carpet out from under Whitey.
No, but apparently the teachers union, coming back to DEI, is suing the over Trump administration's deadline to end the school diversity program. So they did that on yesterday. So the teachers union filed a lawsuit over Trump's crackdown on race and DEI in schools. So I guess we're trying to get rid of 1619 Project and things along those lines. And I think that that's some of the things that he's trying to get rid of. So definitely looks like Carleton College president says federal Dear Colleague letters are an effort to intimidate colleges. So apparently there's some efforts from some of Trump's people to intimidate folks as well. So that ought to be interesting. So yeah, D has to stay in the news.
There's a ton of money in getting Whitey worked up about stuff. Rush Limbaugh developed the business model. You go on the radio and you get white guys worked up that their world is being taken away from them, and you get paid a ton of money. There are, billionaires will sponsor you. We had that kid on a couple of days ago, very well spoken, conservative young guy. He's obviously a part of a bunch of conservative incubators where he's being mentored by conservative organizations, conservative speakers, and he's really good. And I don't know, I complained 2 days ago, I don't see Democrats incubating new talent. But if you have talent, if you're an AOC, AOC is talented. Jasmine Crockett, talented. Good speakers, clever. Katie Porter, talented. but where are the think tanks, the liberal think tanks, like, making it easier for them and training them, media training?
Well, I know that there were a couple of them around, but they're not as active in terms of being in the media as some of the conservative think tanks. But I do know that there are liberal think tanks, because I even know some that exist here in the local area, here in the Raleigh-Durham area, and things like that.
So let me tell a horrible story about myself having no media training, and it just killing me. So Fox News came to me and said they wanted to do a human interest piece on what it's like to have one of America's highest IQs. I'm like, fine, that's good, because I keep thinking that publicity will lead to opportunities. Never frickin' does, really. But so my first mistake was saying yes. And my second mistake was trying to be funny, because this rookie reporter said, well, how do you get any sleep? How do you get anything done in your life, because you're spending all your time taking IQ tests? And I'm like, well, no, I'm not. I mean, even if when I'm, working on one of these crazy hard IQ tests, that's like 40 minutes a day.
Right.
And then she asked it again later on. And now I'm annoyed because she's re-asking the same question. And I said, frankly, I spend more time looking at porn than I do taking IQ tests, which I thought was a jokey thing. And also because, like, everybody looks at porn, but most people don't talk about it. And then I got in a fight with her and her editor, because they wanted to include some details that I made them. They wanted to include that I worked at Kimmel, and I said, you cannot, that I will get in huge trouble at work. And I said, if I do this interview, you can't put that I work there in there. And then they reneged on the promise, and I fought with them for like 10 days. And finally, they agreed not to put where I worked in the story, but instead, because I pissed them off, their headline was "Late Night TV Writer is Addicted to Porn." It wasn't about IQ anymore. It was about
it was about your addiction and everything,
so,
or alleged addiction and everything. Just really quickly.
And within a couple months, my job was gone, and I haven't worked since. But the deal is, it was her fault for being an a-hole and trying to screw me over on a human interest piece. But it was my fault for giving that answer. If I'd had any media training, somebody would have said, you can't, you're an idiot.
Yeah, they would have halted you from doing that and everything. Speaking of that, I got to get to some other Trump news.
Sorry, I went off on a...
No, I'll get to the other Trump news in a second. But Jacoby's here with us, and I was wondering his thoughts about this other thing, because I brought it up earlier. Apparently, they're saying that Christianity's decline in the U.S. has halted, according to a new major study and everything. But even though that's going on, the religiously unaffiliated are growing, and Americans are decreasingly calling religion important to their lives, but they're also divided over its role in society. And I know in the past, the moral majority was what got some people elected, like Reagan and others. And there's probably some people that think that the moral majority may be part of the MAGA movement. But I just wanted your take on this notion of maybe Christianity stabilizing and everything like that, because I know that it ebbs and flows.
Let Jacoby go. I've been talking way too much.
Well, no, Rick, you're fine, because I just learned that porn raises your IQ. But in terms of the polls, I'm finding the polls kind of interesting these days. And honestly, I would like more of I would like your opinion on it, especially Rick, because you had brought it up that polls. I mean, this goes into what you're asking about, though, Mark. But how who's polling and how the polls are conducted and so on and so forth. Now, if we remember way back when that Iowa poll came out that showed a spike where Harris was ahead and there was an outlier poll. Well, remember that Trump went after that pollster, and Trump doesn't like bad news about himself. WhiteHouse.gov put out a message saying new poll shows massive support for President Trump. So when we're talking about the polls, especially dealing around Trump and things in Trump's realm, are things being skewed to a point where it's making because this is where it also gets into the messaging. If you tell people that poop is good and poop is healthy and you should eat it enough times, somebody's going to take you up on that idea and taste it and turn around, even though it tastes like crap. They're going to say, hey,
poop is good. There's a medical procedure called fecal matter transplant where they put they purify other people's poop and they put it in you to give you the right bacteria in your gut.
So, by the way, we have a listener that is responding. Last week, Senate did overnight vote-a-rama and Republicans voted again. Best retest to people. Please call your Congress and tell them on House budget resolution. Sneaky Republicans. That's what Jack Donovan is talking about. And by the way, post can scan, as Kim wants us to remind people, and Nick, and bring their questions to the network by that QR code at the top.
Honestly, what Jack just brought up, I think, is another thing that's going to get out there in the ethos around this whole thing. Because again, the Republicans are great at messaging. They say waste, fraud, and abuse about everything. They've tested these words, they've tested these things, and it's a key thing. They never say what the actual waste, fraud, and abuse is. They just say the words. Like when they're talking about Medicare, Medicaid, and how they're going to strip that away from people. Oh, the way they're going to do that? Well, there's a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse. Where? What do you see? Well, there are a lot of, there's waste, fraud, and abuse. Are you saying there isn't? So then they get you to agree to that one little sliver so they can actually attack those things, which is what they did in the budget. And the budget is trash. I mean, it's really, really horrible. And they are doing all this stuff through reconciliation and everything else because they're trying to push whatever Donald Trump wants through, which gets me back to the whole polling thing. Because if you tell people enough times, especially coming out from the White House, saying that people are supporting me, people are loving what I'm doing, you should love it too. Love what I. Everybody loves. Is this the same White House that is? That's why I'm not trusting.
Right, so, but is this the same? Hold on a second, Rick. Is this the same White House that is picking who gets to report on from the White House? They're saying that this is a whole new precedent where the White House is basically kicking out folks. I think they kicked out the AP recently because they didn't like the AP's reporting on a certain news item and everything.
Yeah, but let me do polls because that's I've looked at a lot of polls. But first, I want to say that the Republicans are holding the government and government workers to standards that they don't hold private industry to.
True.
I've never had a government job. I've had a ton of private, just regular jobs. And people do not work nose to the grindstone, sweating bullets 10, 12 hours a day. And you shouldn't have to. Your job should not be pure misery and stress. I mean, some jobs are. Freaking, if you're, a cop, a firefighter, I mean, you got a lot of downtime unless you're in LA this year, but when it's happening, a lot of stress, but your job shouldn't make you miserable. It's but anyway, with the polls. So Trump's honeymoon period is narrowing. He started with +8 approval. Now he's down to less than 1% approval. And the only reason he still has any positive approval is because the same way I said that Republican think tanks have a ton of money, Republican pollsters get paid a lot. And this time around, there are a lot more Republican pollsters. For instance, Napolitan Institute. So Rasmussen gets kicked out of the polling average for being biased, but some of the Rasmussen people start a new company that's Napolitan. And they say that Trump is at +9 approval, but the other pollsters say that American Research Group says he's at -8 approval. Washington Post, -8 approval. They both can't be right.
They both can't be right. And Jack brought
basically nobody's right because our brains are so polluted with propaganda now and thinking everything's bullshit that nobody, those polls are just chock full of
The
people
truck
who
full
were
of errands and
supplying.
everything. I did want to get to Sasha
Well,
because of something. Hold on a second, because of something else that came up in the news that had to do with the Trump era as well and everything. There's this notion that I guess Zelensky is going to agree to give some minerals in order to get some concessions in terms of aid from Trump and everything. So I just wanted your take on this because you follow this story more than I do. But I did see that there was going to be some potential concessions in terms of mineral rights from Ukraine.
Okay, everything is now in a very tightly held secret. We don't understand and we don't know what is this agreement all about. What mineral wealth? How it's going to be administered? I've heard about this, some kind of a fund which will manage all that, and so the proceeds will be split 50-50, and the fund probably, I would assume, would be managed by United States. And United States, I shouldn't even say United States, it will be their representative. So United States will have the right to appoint people, whether it will be Elon Musk or it could be somebody else. So they will administer that, and once it's done, and they have control over the ports where this rare minerals will be shipped to some destinations which we don't know nothing about. Oh, this to me is a complete bamboozle to benefit Donald Trump personally. So he will show how stupid Democrats were supplying billions of dollars worth of help to Ukraine, and now Trump, by supplying nothing, will get a certain percentage, 50% or whatever will be there for this mineral rights. Okay, now Russia.
Terry has a question for you. She wants to know, will Canada ban Elon 180,000 signatures to kick him out for treason? Is that real? And she wanted to ask you that. By the way, she was also asking about the investment show. The investment show is at 1 o'clock on Wednesday. So I know because of this QR code, people are asking for the schedule. So it is 1 o'clock on today for the investment show. So
Okay, number one, there is a petition already signed by hundred thousands of people. I think it's almost 200,000 by now, to strip Elon Musk of Canadian citizenship. We'll see how it will work out. Now on investments. It's a green day today. Markets are up. Everything is working okay. However, on investment show later on today, I would like to offer a warning to investors that this is going to be, so far it's working its way, but we will see it in next few months, a tragic downfall of stock market thanks to Trump and his policies and tariffs and everything was going on. He wants to completely remake U.S. government. He wants to remake U.S. foreign policies. He wants to remake, kill, kill, kill. And that's not going to work 100% because there will be, next week, I think Friday, will be unemployment report. And now people who were fired will have to report. And it's not going to be a pretty thick picture, not at all. More and more people will be looking at the doors. Some of them will be collecting unemployment insurance. A lot of them will be having very difficult time to be rehired somewhere or find the alternative jobs. So there will be not a very pretty picture. So as you see now, what I was looking at the last day or two, the interest rates are going down and the market is going down. Usually in a normal situation, they are going in opposite directions. If market moves up, interest rates are going down. If market moves down, the interest rates, it means that interest rates move down. But now they're both going down. That shows that the US economy is not healthy. The interest rates are going down And market is going down. Today there is a bounce. There is Nvidia earning ahead after the market is closed, to be precise, for 4:20 p.m. today. It's a very, very enormously important event because it will affect not only Nvidia but overall the market. The way I'm playing it, I have shares of Nvidia. I sold covered calls, something like May 140. So this is protective measure. And on downside, believe it or not, I don't purchase options. But however, today I did purchase options. I purchased, believe it or not, I think it's April 90 puts. 90. Stock is today 131, something like that. So I do allow an existence of a huge downside move, and not only for Nvidia but overall market. Especially if Nvidia, see, the problem is that Nvidia will report very good earnings today. There's no doubt about that. However, if one component of the earnings will not be 100% aligned with the market analysts' expectations, with all its positive earnings, the stock can tank. I can see that as a possibility to happen. And even if it will survive earnings and will move somewhat higher, then it will reverse together with all market. Market is very vulnerable today. I didn't expect that Trump's action would affect the market so much, but it's evident, it's happening, and people really have to run for cover. I never, in last, I don't know, 3 years or so, I never sound so pessimistic as I'm sounding now.
So I have a question for Sasha.
Yeah.
The way that Russia and the U.S. are dealing with Ukraine reminds me in 1939 when the Soviet Union and Germany basically signed a pact that let them each take half of Poland. Poland had no choice in the matter. Am I wrong to think that that seems a little analogous?
First of all, very few people are aware is that Hitler attacked Poland on September 1st, 1939. And Poland was fighting violently against Germany. And the German had difficult time to make any progress until, guess what, September 17th, when the Russian army hit Poland from the east. The Germany attacked from the west, and Russian on 17th of September started a huge attack from the east. And that's where the Poland stopped its resistance, because resist at the same time to Germany and Russia, no country could, and of course Poland couldn't do it. So they had to surrender, and Poland as a name of a country has disappeared for a few long years. There was no longer Poland on the map of Europe. Now, what's happening here? Look, I think Trump is playing his own game. He extracted some agreement which is supposed to be signed on Friday. We don't know what agreement, what it's all about, but that will be a huge diplomatic victory for Trump one way or another. Now, he's doing now, following this, he will do the same thing with Russia. What's happened with Russia is that Putin already approached Trump that, look, you need mineral rare metals. We have plenty of it. Why you never told me that? We have plenty of that. We will supply Ukraine. Come on, it's a joke. We have probably 50 times that amount what you need, and we will give it to you, and we will give it to you virtually for free. if you really need it. You're my friend, and I'll give it to you, everything what you need. So, follow that. There will be most likely some kind of agreement between U.S. and Russia. From that point on, believe it or not, Trump can walk away from it all. And he can say, listen, you are a beautiful country, both Ukraine and Russia. Figure it out what you want to do. You want to fight, so keep going. Okay, you want a peace. Okay, make a peace. But however, I will extract all mineral wealth from both of you, one way or another. If you will defeat Ukraine and take it all over, so I understand that you are going to provide and abide by the agreements that we signed with Ukrainians. So good luck to you, and keep fighting or keep making peace, whatever really you need. So this is a situation where the negotiator asks both parties to contribute to his bank account certain amounts of money. They did, both sides, and then he said, okay, now you are free to negotiate and do it, whatever you want to do. Thank you, bye-bye. Okay, so here is a Donald Trump shtick. That's what he was doing all his life, screwing people and companies.
Well, speaking of that and everything, Sasha, and those negotiations, I was going to bring it up to Jacoby, but I'm sure you've got some thoughts around it as well. But he has put out this notion of the Gaza resort and everything, and he put out an AI image completed with, and I think he borrowed the idea from you, Rick, and everything, because he put out this notion of Netanyahu being semi-nude at this resort that he wants to build and everything. So he created an AI image of the Gaza resort that he.
Oh yeah, them sunbathing on the beach in beautiful new Gaza. Yeah.
Well, we have some new information that just came in that this panel should be interested in. And this one I find to be appalling by your friends in the Republican. They're asking for a $4.5 trillion tax cut. Okay. And all the Republicans voted for it. Now realize the United States is $37 trillion in debt, and they're asking for a $4.5 trillion tax cut. That is not good. There was only one Republican that actually voted for not having it, and we want to give him kudos, and that's Thomas Massie. I don't know what state he represents, but we have to give him kudos because he actually has a spine. He was a Republican who said no to the $4.5 trillion tax cut because you can't have it both ways. You can't be in debt up to your eyeballs, which you are, and tell everybody they're going to lose their jobs or we're going to do this cutting, and then turn around and just give a $4.5 trillion tax cut to the world's wealthiest people. That is totally wrong. Thank you, Thomas Massie. And for the rest of you,
Thomas Massie, I think, is Kentucky.
He is Kentucky. He's the represent Kentucky 4th congressional district, which is.
I've been frustrated with him in the past because he's an engineer. He's got advanced degrees in STEM topics, yet often he votes stupidly. But here, for once, being good at math has led him to a reasonable position.
Now to wake Jacoby up, your friend Stacey Adams and your other giveaway partner, Joe Biden, gave $2 billion to Stacey Adams' climate control group. Okay, just part of the problem that we have in Washington D.C. On one hand,
problem
they
is,
give away
where are you getting this
amounts of
information?
money to these liberal organizations who do nothing for the American public. Then on the other hand, they give out billions of dollars to rich people who aren't going to help you. So you got a serious problem in your country.
Yeah, that climate control thing, I think, is like a Musk tweet that may not be rooted in reality.
I know. Go ahead and defend it. Go ahead and defend it.
No, I'm just saying.
Please don't play that game. Your country's $37 trillion in the hole. Please.
Wait, Terry McKenna. Hold on, Terry.
Yeah, we got a question from Terry. Hold on.
Let's do this question.
We got a question from Terry.
So, the price of eggs has been going up about 2% every 3 days. So if that continues,
you guys are majoring in
if that continues, the price of eggs will be 890% of what it was at the beginning of the year. So, which was $6.50. So 9 times $6.50 gives you about $59 a dozen.
And
So,
so what?
just wanted
No,
to
no one cares about the price of eggs. Cares about the price of
Well, a viewer asked me to do the math. I did the
No,
math.
he actually
Well, I
asked
mean,
you
I
to
just
do
wanted
that.
to
I think
answer
it's
Nick
irrelevant.
because he keeps asking a question and talking
No,
over.
I file a motion to strike the price of
I
eggs.
just
for
want
relevant
to
to
answer the question
national
for
health.
you, Nick. Just want to
Okay,
answer the
this is
question.
relevant.
Now, you
This is
brought up the
this
four.
is your
Hold on,
typical
Nick.
giveaway, and you guys
Hey,
want.
Nick.
hey, Nick, Joey's got a question for you.
Okay,
I
Kentucky.
got it.
Yeah, tell me why giving away $2 billion is correct.
Okay, let me finish. So
Fine.
one, you brought up the 4.5 trillion that they are doing in tax cuts, but you forgot to also talk about the 4 trillion that they're talking about raising the they want a debt limit increase. So that's a lot of money that they're adding in. Then on top of that, you're saying $2 billion, but you don't know where that $2 billion actually is because it was quoted from Elon Musk and Doge quietly behind the scenes took down some of their biggest additions that they were saying were out there. They didn't make an announcement that those things were lies, but all they did was take them off of their budget. So this $2 billion that you're running with and trying to put out there into the ethos is a lie, and you don't have any backing to prove that it's real. So until you prove that it's real, you shouldn't even put that out there.
So I just looked at
It's like an allegation.
Hold on, because I just
What you're
looked it up.
saying is if somebody has an allegation, they
You're
should.
saying that somebody made it up, and you're running with it made up. No, Nick,
Continually
you're
projecting
running
the
with
future
made
things
up
that don't
figures.
exist. This is real. This is
No,
absolutely
it
real.
is.
It has all the earmarks of being bullshit. This is a statement from the EPA. It says less than well, first of all, it's not grammatical. The EPA released the statement. Less than a month in office, U.S. EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin has made progress in uncovering waste and abuse. This week, he shined a light on $2 billion of the $20 billion in gold bars parked by the Biden-Harris administration at an outside organization to reduce oversight. So this guy, the new head of the EPA, Trump appointed, says that Biden was moving around $20 billion in gold bars to keep it from government oversight. Now, that would be terrible if true, but that sounds like the purest bullshit to me. And also, if you go back to, hold on. If you go back to the Google page on this, it says it looks like the results below are changing quickly, which means people are fighting about whether it's total bullshit or not.
And check this out, Rick. What makes it true in people's minds, like Nick, who comes and brings it up? They use the key word waste, fraud, and abuse. They use that phrase every time, and people run with it. Oh, well, look what the waste, fraud, and abuse they found. People bought $50 billion worth of paper clips. That's BS. But hey, they use the term, so it's got to be true. That is the messaging. That is how they do it. That is how they trained and manipulated people on a regular basis to run with BS and don't even care about if there's a fact check behind it.
Yeah, speaking of waste,
real quick, Mark, because this is coming to you. This is how bad it's gotten. And the reason why the fact check stuff is really going to be necessary and why the press is necessary, which is horrible because this is why Donald Trump is talking about taking away unknown sources. That is a press thing. That's a freedom of the press thing. Donald Trump is curating anyone who asks him questions. That's a freedom of the press thing.
However,
they're taking away the whole freedom of the press and able to manipulate and say waste, fraud, and abuse. Then all these right-wing organizations put it out there without any fact checking, without any pushback.
But wait a second.
That's just
Russian thing. You're skating over it like it doesn't exist.
But hold on. Let's talk about, there is a fact.
An organization that was founded in 2023 reported $100 in revenue. That was it. Chosen to receive $2 billion.
When
If these allegations
Nick,
are deemed to be true,
you have control. You can
Oh,
bring
God.
up
Pie,
your
my
facts.
friend.
So don't
you want me to
say
send
you're
you a
reading off
pie?
of
It's
Twitter.
called a humble pie.
You're reading off of
Hold
Twitter.
on. Let's look at the fact check. Yahoo did a fact check, and it kind of supports what Nick is saying.
Of course.
But it could be expressed more cleanly because there was a $2 billion grant. Stacey Abrams was partially in charge of how this grant was to be spent from the EPA's National Clean Investment Fund, allocated from the Inflation Reduction Act to help affordably decarbonize American homes. Now, what Nick could bitch about is, what does green energy and decarbonization have to do with inflation reduction? And Nick would be justified in saying that's freaking crazy.
Incorrect.
There's all
Thank
kinds
you, Your
of
Honor. Thank you, Your Honor.
Incorrect.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, thank you. Thank you for ruling in my favor against that
Incorrect.
other guy.
No, hold on a second.
hold on,
I got a question for everybody,
wait.
including Sasha and you, Jacoby, because this is the other big story that came up, which didn't make any sense to me. Speaking of news and everything, because apparently there is a concern about Trump's health and everything, because one of the things that was reported, and I saw it reported on several news things, is that there is a bruise on Trump's hand, and what he is saying is that it's because he's been shaking a lot of hands. Isn't that what politicians do in general, is shake hands and kiss babies? I thought that was part of the job of a politician.
Yeah,
but that is the
Trump
reason that he is given, is for this mysterious bruise that is on his hand. He's been saying that
it could be, but that is where they put an IV line sometimes. It doesn't really look like that, though. But Trump is 78 and a half, and it's easy to bruise a 78 and a half-year-old. And if you saw the handshakes that he and Macron were doing, they were doing some kind of deal where it looks like they were competing to see who could crush the other one's hand, which is kind of an old guy jagoff move to really get in there first and then smash the other guy's hand. So it could have been something like that. I would almost.
I mean, have you ever shaken what's that guy's name? Andre the Giant's hand? Have you ever seen Andre the Giant? His hand is huge, absolutely huge.
So he and Macron had like a 10-second handshake where neither of them was letting go.
It's alpha males just showing how alpha they are. What a waste. But this is a big waste. This needs to be brought up. $4.5 trillion tax cut by the Republicans. Okay, this is totally wrong. You don't cut taxes when you're 37 trillion in the hole. This is really bad timing, really bad idea, and it really shows you that the Republican Party should all resign in shame. Anyone who voted for it, except for Thomas Massie. Thomas Massie, the crazy engineer, is the only one who got it right.
He voted for Trump. He doesn't get this pity clap. I don't give pity clap to people that actually cause this problem.
What?
Sasha?
I'm not giving a pity clap to a guy that already caused this problem. He was one that actually put on and campaigned for Donald Trump. So he actually asked for this. Him voting against it does not deserve a pity clap.
Okay.
Hold on a second, Sasha.
Excuse me. I'm talking now.
Yeah, Sasha's turn.
Yeah, but you're in
Thank
Canada.
you. Quiet, please. I'm surprised that you're missing one interesting thing. That beside $4.5 trillion tax, there is also increase of $4 trillion to the allowing the debt of the government. So essentially what you're doing, you're increasing debt, because where are you going to take this $4.5 trillion? Where from? Who is going to give it to you this? Nobody. So you increase the debt, you're borrowing this $4 trillion, and then you decrease taxes for your friends and so on. So essentially you are financing your friends. This is all what it's all about. Compare it, look at it, and think about it. Thank you.
It's pretty freaking transparent, and Trump and friends are just hoping that that people don't notice in the avalanche of other crazy crap that's going on.
Yeah, but also we gotta pose this how significant it is, because we just heard our friend from Canada speak. They're talking a $4.5 trillion tax cut. Let's go to Canada and show you how insignificant Canada really is in the world. Canada's total GDP in 2023 was only 2.1 trillion. That was it. That's it. It's Sasha, your entire country. We are proposing a tax
We
cut
have
of
one.
$4.5 trillion, which is twice your entire bloody stupid country.
We have 1/10 of.
So yeah, it should be the 51st state because they
Our
don't make it.
economy is 10 times smaller than United States. So
Look
the
how tiny.
you are talking about are insignificant, because if you multiply 2.1 trillion times 10, it will be 21 trillion. And what is US GDP? Do you know?
GDP's like almost like $30 trillion. I mean, but your total GDP of your country is 2.1 trillion. So Trump was right saying it should be the 51st state, because frankly, you guys don't make enough money to justify anything. And if you look at what happens in the United States, we're proposing a $4.5 trillion tax cut. You have to imagine everybody in Canada working for 2 years, and we're just going to cut it out of our budget.
That's not true.
That's how significant this is. And the press is mindless. They don't know how bad this really is. A $4.5 trillion tax cut. This is extremely bad, and people need to know about it. How bad it really is. It's horrible. You know, it gives you something to attack the Republicans on, Toby, rather than try to defend.
No. What the problem is, Nick, we were talking about the 4.5 trillion. I even brought up the 4 trillion they're adding to the debt that you're not even talking about. And you just went off on this whole tangent about the decarbonization, but don't understand what decarbonization does. Don't even understand the fact that respiratory illnesses are a little bit higher than normal. Also, respiratory illness, stuff like asthma, all caused by air pollution. You know what decarbonization helps with? Air pollution. You know what also?
Have you been to Beijing? Have you been to
decarbonization? So all this stuff that you're complaining about, with the Democrats were doing,
in India and China,
you wanted to focus there. So I just took it back there just to correct you on a lot of stuff there.
I'm just telling you,
4.5 trillion. You need to focus there as well. But again, I'm not clapping for Thomas Massey, who voted for it.
I am. He deserves some credit because he
voted for Trump. Trump said he was going to do it.
I have to clap for Massey, because I have a collection of broken clocks, and they're right twice a day. And so is Massey.
No, we on that. There's that FA, and that's what happened. Now we're at the FO stage, and this is what's going on. So
you will not give credit to anybody when credit is due. I got it.
Clap.
I'm going to bring you a humble pie. You don't give credit when credit is due.
To wrap up and everything, we'll have these discussions on tomorrow as well. As usual, Nick came in here and had to be disruptive and everything. And talk over
I'm just bringing you
that's what he does lately. Yeah, he was talking about even Rick even Sasha was noting that as well, because he was over there being Mr. Disruptive and everything. So I think he enjoys this notion and everything where we kind of have a respectful conversation. But yeah, Nick likes to come in and be Mr. Disruptive. But on that note, we're going to get ready to get on out of here. We'll have the investment show at 1:00. So at 1:00, we'll have Milan. I think Jim Eid will be with us as well, and hopefully maybe even some other folks also. But definitely we'll see if Charles shows up or not. But right now, we're getting ready to get on out of here.